Okay, welcome back. We're on page 254 talking about storage tiering. So another classic example of storage tiering is I have a tape drive. Now tape drives are inherently slow. I mean, they're serial. If you want to go if your file you're hunting for is at the beginning of the tape, boy, it works really cool. But if it's at the end of the tape, it has no choice but to just go all the way through the tape until it finally finds your guy. So that's pretty bad. So when writing to a tape drive, you typically would go through like a hard drive first to make sure that the tape drive is being fed at its maximum speed. You don't want the tape drive to stop and pick up and stop and pick up. It's called shoe shining back in the day. Back when we had the big reel-to-reel guys, they would go zzz, it would stop, go zzz, because it's going back and forth because I'm not feeding it fast enough. That's what storage tiering is all about. So if I have a combination of fast disk and slow disk, I want to arrange them so that the most relevant information is going to coming off of fast disk, and maybe things that don't change much, like archive kind of things, or just slow-moving files that don't happen very much, you designate those guys to the slower disk. Kind of makes sense. So managing storage, page 256. During the storage manager file storage device services role. Now remember we talked about how this kind of came with us, right? We didn't actually have to pay for this guy, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend like I'm getting ready to add one of these guys. So one of the things that they did is this file storage and services. Now there's a whole bunch of these guys, and we didn't bother to do too many others. For example, we didn't go through and do the dedupe thing and the replication and all that. So it does do data duplication, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All we chose is just the plain old storage devices, which is kind of the beginning setup. I'm going to skip the PowerShell portions of that and move on to understanding RAID on page 257. So RAID stands for a redundant array of inexpensive disks. It used to be inexpensive. Now it's kind of independent disk. The idea was you had a bunch of disks left over, and you threw them all together. And there's one RAID type which is not RAID at all. It's called just a bunch of disks. Yes, that's what it's called. And so the idea is you just grab all your drives that you have sitting around but not doing anything. You put them all in an enclosure, and you tell the machine, all these drives are just there. Have fun. And so it's a good way to use up your used stuff. But basically, it's designed to take a bunch of disks together and make them appear as one big disk. So my RAID does that. My NAS box has 6 drives operating under a RAID configuration, and I'll go ahead and tell you right now it's a RAID 5 configuration. We'll talk about RAID levels in just a minute. And so, but to me, from the interface, it is one single drive, even though it's composed of 5 or 6 physical drives. So the purpose is to make things faster. That would be cool, because reading and writing to one disk is, okay, but reading and writing to a bunch of disks in parallel, that would probably speed things up. And then the most important thing, other than speed, is the reliability. It's much more resilient. If I was to lose a single drive, if my machine has a C drive and a D drive, if I lost that, well, it's gone, right? I would have to just go back, buy a new drive, stick it in there, and then go back, do a restore. But NAS boxes are designed to be fault tolerant, so that if a single drive failed, the machine would continue to run just as if it had no fault. Now, it will be slower because it's missing some stuff, but it'll provide you time. Basically, you go, oh, dang, drive number 3 died. I'll order me a new one. And so when you get the new drive, you pop the old one out, put the driver back in. The machine says, hang on, I detected you made a disk change here. Let me fix that for you. And it might take it a while to do its little tricks. But again, you've lost no data, and you have enough time to be able to deal with it. Unlike if my C drive dies, I go to Best Buy and buy a new drive and come back and then spend a half the day, installing it and doing the restore. So on page 258, they start talking about the RAID types. RAID 0. RAID 0 is designed for speed alone. I take 2 drives and bolt them together. And so Mary Hatta goes to one drive and Little Lamb goes to the other drive. So I've broken a file up into part 1 goes over here and part 2 goes over here. Okay, now it's all done behind the scenes. I don't have to deal with it. So that makes it fast. The problem here is it has no redundancy whatsoever. So that if one drive fails, you've lost everything. If you split things up into two pieces, and you lose one piece, doesn't matter if you left the right-hand piece or the left-hand piece. Doesn't matter. You're toast. So you only use that in speed scenarios. RAID 1 is good for performance. RAID 1 means everything is duplicated. So when I build a server, I typically have the C drive, the operating system drive, in a RAID 1, which means everything that's written to here also gets written to here. Now there's no speed advantage whatsoever. In fact, all it does is just break things up for resilience. If one of the drives died, I'm okay. And again, I have enough time to deal with things. RAID 5 is not quite as good as performance, but it's much more scalable. RAID 1 really is designed for like 2 disks, and that's it, not for anything else. That's typically the way that works. So RAID 5 is very, very scalable. So I could put 10 drives in. I would never do that. 10 drives in a RAID 1 would make no sense whatsoever. But 10 drives in a RAID 5, and one of the drives capacity is used for doing all the redundancy stuff. I'll explain what that means in a minute. But a very common thing is what's called RAID 10. It's a combination of RAID 1 and RAID 0. It would take 4 drives to pull it off. But I have 2 drives in a RAID 1, 2 drives in a RAID 1, and have those, I said it wrong. 2 drives in a RAID 0, 2 drives in a RAID 0, and then bolt them together as a single RAID 10. Okay. All right. So let's just go through and do some calculations because this is going to be a little math heavy. So 2 disks in a RAID 0. Let's say I have 1 terabyte drive, just to make the math easy. Okay, so a 1 terabyte drive. So if I have 2 drives in a RAID 0, that gives me 2 terabyte because I'm just bolting them together. 2 disks in a RAID 1 would be 1 terabyte because the capacity is the same, right? I don't get any more capacity out of it. I just get redundancy. In a RAID 5, one of the disk's capacity is lost to make up for this redundancy thing. So if you had 5 disks, you'd get 4 disks worth of capacity. Okay? If you had 6 disks, you get 5 disks worth of capacity. And then in a 4 disk in a RAID 10 would get you 2 terabytes because you built 2 and 2, but you bolted them together, right? All right, so basically that's something that's going to be on the test, guarantee it, about how you calculate the resultant volume size of a RAID 5, for example. It's a good one. Hardware versus software RAID in 258, there was an awful lot of hue and cry at the beginning because CPUs weren't powerful enough to do this. You would buy a separate SCSI controller, or RAID controller, sorry. I had SCSI RAID controllers. You plug a RAID controller in the machine, it had its own little hardware, its own memory, even had its own battery backup. I mean, it was a very expensive card just to do the RAID stuff. Okay. Now that's, and the idea of these devices would do what's called the parity checking. Remember we talked about one of the drive's capacity is designed just for doing checking? Well, it would do that checking in hardware to speed things up. Now, software has gotten so fast and CPUs have gotten so fast that we don't ever see hardware-based RAID anymore. Maybe on a server. Software RAID is the typical let the operating system do its thing. Firmware RAID, that one's a little tougher. If you have a honest-to-God real RAID controller, when you boot the machine up, you're going to have to tell it, oh, okay, here's my devices, here's what RAID I want, and all that kind of. It's all done long before the operating system shows up. Now, the problem with that is when it comes to doing a swap, a server swap or something, the likelihood of you buying a brand new card, a new server, and bringing all those guys over, without too much fuss, it's probably not going to happen. So firmware RAID is better, but you're kind of locked in. I mean, you really can't change vendors. Okay. Understanding software-defined storage. Basically, it's a mimic of RAID on a SAN or a NAS, except it's just done all completely smoke and mirrors on the machine. So software-defined storage is kind of cool, and it can be portable. I mean, for example, during this period of time, I need a lot of disk storage, but other times I don't. So I would use software-defined storage to be able to just switch back and forth between. Okay, I needed 30 terabytes for a week, and then I'm done, and I'll go back to 5 terabyte. That would be the only real reason I could see using the software guys. High availability. So here's another cool thing. They talk about the 5 nines availability. I like 5 nines. So 5 nines availability means per month, or just go to year. You're down from no more than 5.26 minutes per year in a 5-9 scenario. So 5 minutes and 16 seconds. That's how long a 5 nines would do. So high availability is something you would get in a RAID scenario, right? I'm wanting so that I expect the downtime to be minimal. So I would use, a RAID 5 or RAID 6. RAID 6 is basically when you get to some point, like when you get to like 10 drives, the likelihood of one drive failing is about the same as having a second drive failing. So if you had 30 drives, well then I probably wouldn't want to have a single drive being responsible for all that. So RAID 6 basically just says, instead of taking one disk capacity to do this, we'll take 2. I don't have that in my scenario here at the house. Okay, understanding disk, page 260, hard disk drive, a spinner, 5400 RPM used to be the standard for those guys. And if really super duper ones, you could get 15,000 RPM SCSI drives. I had some of those. They were kind of cool. But spinners are just. We talked about the interface. The SATA interface has not even attempted to catch up. We're at SATA, a SATA 3, but it's probably not going to be a SATA 4 because, quite frankly, no one cares. Everyone's gone to NVMe and storage, directly attached to PCIe lanes with NVMe. So again, SSDs have no moving parts, and the capacity is not quite the same. I mean, I must confess, you can get a 60 terabyte spinner, and you can't get a 60 terabyte NVMe. But what the heck? I'll just get a motherboard that's got 5 NVMe slots in it. I'll plug in as many as I want. Optical, that's pretty straightforward. CD-ROM, CDR, CDRW, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously they're extremely slow, even compared to traditional hard drives. No less, solid state drives. Basic disk, page 263. So when it comes time to partitioning a disk, you can't just say, look, I just want a basic disk. And one partition can be expanded to use unused space on the drive. But a basic disk can't be expanded to go a single volume to go to a second drive. So yes, I can have a disk, and I can say I want to partition it here, or I could say I want the whole capacity, but it's only on that one disk. A dynamic disk, when it comes time to formatting, you can say, well, I want a portion of this disk and a portion of this one and a portion of this one. It's not quite RAID, not really. It's kind of RAID-like, but it's all about formatting the disk that a single partition could expand over multiple things. People don't typically use that much these days. Create a volume from a group of disks, and then I can have a simple one, a mirrored one, striped, spanned, and RAID 5. The only real thing here is because you're multiple disks, you can't use BitLocker on any of these guys, because BitLocker is on a single physical drive, right? And so there is a thing you can go in with disk management. You can convert a simple drive to a dynamic. I wouldn't recommend it. This is sort of old technology. It had its place, but it's kind of going beyond that now. Okay, once again, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark.